Well, continuing War and Stupidity, I mean, the track itself for several reasons. I mean, firstly, it's like the opening track on the album, and it's really a fast and furious track, you know. So I'm kind of glad that one's getting attention, but sort of equally as importantly, the actual subject matter of the song, you know, it's very relevant to what's going on now, and because I wrote it back then, you know, it's quite spooky, really, you know, because it's an anti-war song, you know, and it's basically about it makes a mockery of the term war on terrorism, you know, which was obviously coined quite a few months ago now, which I believe to be a complete sham as statements go, you know, because if you're going to conduct a war on terrorism, then you have to look at your own actions previously, you know. If you're really going to look at terrorism, you know, yeah, you have to look at it across the board, really, you know, looking at Central America, you know, what went on there with the CIA-sponsored death squads and stuff like that. So, you know, what is the real war? What is the real terrorism? You know, I think people might ask. So, you know, it's a very pointed piece of subject matter, you know, and I'm quite happy that it's been focused on now. 9/11 hasn't changed too much. Certainly not the things that you would expect. I mean, I personally have a certain belief system that I don't believe the hype, if you know what I'm saying, you know. I wasn't paranoid about travelling after September the 11th, because what happened was admittedly, it was a horrible thing, you know, but it was a calculated act, you know. It was a single act, you know, and I don't believe that after that anything else was going to happen, you know. So it doesn't bother me at all. The problem that the thing that sort of concerns me about the whole thing is, to a certain extent, there's been an invasion of civil liberties, you know, because now, as a band with a lot to say, you know, topically and certainly for myself, I've got a deep mistrust of not only the Bush administration but my own government, you know, who, as far as I'm concerned, my Prime Minister, I feel has got his head up George Bush's ass, you know, and I don't appreciate that, you know what I mean, from my Prime Minister. You know, George Bush is a really conservative guy, you know, and this guy that we've got running the country, in theory, is supposed to be an alternative to that, you know, but it's not happening that way, and that concerns me. So, you know, with all these new laws that are coming out and stuff, I do kind of get slightly afraid that one day you're going to say something, as is your right to voice your opinion, you know, and you're going to be arrested, you know, and told that it's whatever, you know, it's an act of I don't know, trying to provoke a situation, you know, and that kind of concerns me, you know. No, I mean, the lyrics in Napalm Death, are very, very to the point, you know. I think I think people sort of know where they're coming from, certainly in these latter two albums that we've done, more so than ever. But you know, I mean, it is a serious band, and it has got. I certainly do try to hammer those points home, you know, but there's also another side to it, where there are going to be people that are just going to take from it what they want to take from it, and I think it would be wrong to try and, you know, almost press gang them into saying, well, you like the music, you must, you know, go along with all this, because that's just not natural in a sense, you know. People should, I think, naturally get into it themselves and accept it, you know, or disagree with it, you know, whatever their opinion is, you know. So, I mean, because of that, there are a lot of kids, and there'll be a lot of kids here come to the gig tonight that are just interested in the music, and that's cool. I don't have a problem with that. But at least if they know what we're trying to say, at least they know it's there. At least we're not hiding it, so they can then make their own mind up. I mean, napalm death. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, like you say, we're considered the forefathers of this grindcore movement or whatever, and people, you know, mention that quite a lot. You're certainly not the first, and you won't be the last. But I mean, the point is that, you know, I think the worst thing in the world would be to sort of absorb all the plaudits, you know, and take the kudos, you know, and say, yeah, well, we did this, we did that. You know, if you're gonna, the secret to longevity, you know, certainly with napalm death, is that instead of taking that to heart in the past, we'd rather concentrate on what we're going to do next, you know, to make that good, without thinking, oh yeah, you know, we're it, you know, we can do whatever we want, you know, put it out and people will be into it. That's not the way, you know. The way is to think of what you're going to do in the future and make that the best you can. You know? I mean, napalm death albums since I've been in the band have been, you know, they have varied quite a lot, you know. I mean, you speak to some kids and they say, well, all your albums are kind of along the same lines. They're not, you know, because the mid-90s stuff was very sort of experimental for us, you know, and it took a lot for some members of the band to, including myself included, to kind of accept the sideways shift. But like this many years after the fact, you know, myself as a member of Napalm Death, I now see the reason why those albums happened, and I appreciate some of them more, you know, for what they were. So I mean, it's not. Some people think it's really cut and dry being in a band like Napalm Death. You do your music, and that's it. You put it out, and there you go. But it's not. We fucking agonise over it sometimes. You know what I mean? We really do, you know, and we kind of catfight amongst each other, you know, and it's not as easy as what people think. So, you know, there has been a lot of, you know, tangents in the music and stuff, but. Well, to be honest, I mean, the situation with Earache was, it was a very long time ongoing thing. It was dragging on, and finally we got out of it. It was a blessed relief. But then we kind of went to other labels, and to be honest, even though they weren't as bad in a lot of aspects, to be honest, a lot of labels are still really, really just, they promise you this and they promise you that, and they never come up with what they need to come up with, you know. And it's really disheartening, you know, which is why, you know, we've kind of got our own record label now, which is distributed through, you know, whatever distributors we can get in the future. And hopefully, you know, maybe whatever happens with the next album, it will be on our own label sort of thing, because I'm just sick and tired of dealing with people that promise this, promise that, and you just, like, 2 years down the line and you've not received anything, you've not received record royalty statements or anything like that. It's just, it's total sickening, you know. I mean, in terms of being an underground band, I mean, we come out on the road and we make some cash, we go away with some cash, but, you know, give it a month or something and that cash is gone. You know, once you've paid the rent and all the rest of it, it's gone. I mean, I've got a job, I've got a day job at home, you know, not a regular 9 to 5, you know. The other guys haven't. They manage to exist on, you know, the very little that they've got, you know, because they all live together. I live alone, you know, so you know, I need to pay the bills and stuff. I need to work, and, you know, I'm not going to cry, but I'm not going to sit and cry to you about that, because I know the situation. But, you know, it's not easy, man. The one thing that kind of really makes me laugh sometimes is that, like, Napalm got, in days gone by, people used to point the finger and call us like sellouts. It's like, well, sell out to what, you know? Do you see me, you know, living a decadent, extravagant lifestyle? I don't think so, you know what I mean? And none of us are greedy, you know. We just ask for, all we ask is that we can get a dignified, you know, sort of wage, you know, as is the regular kind of thing with everyday workers, you know. You just want a sort of dignified wage that you can exist on, and that's it, you know. So You know,
hard place to be.
it's not easy, man. It's certainly not easy. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it, but at the same time, I ain't going to tell you it's easy, because it ain't. You know? Well, napalm death in the future, I mean, who can tell? I mean, obviously you always get asked that question, where are you going to be in 12 months' time? And I can't answer that, you know, because we may well be gone, you know. You just never know, you know. There could be, like, you know, extenuating circumstances or whatever, you know, that leads to the band falling apart. You know, it has happened. It's been on the verge, you know, at times. Sometimes, you know, because of between ourselves, but a lot of the time circumstances beyond our control. So I can't really say. I mean, we're trying to get this label established where we can put out other bands and give them that fair deal that they don't get off regular record labels. You know, because one thing that does, I feel quite strongly about is if we're going to do a record label, you know, there's no reason why we have to follow the kind of standards of the record labels. You know, because one thing that does, I feel quite strongly about is if we're going to do a record label, you know, there's no reason why we have to follow the kind of standards of the regular music industry. You know, we can be fair, you know, and we can do things differently, and even if that's not immediately apparent, we should strive to do that. You know, I think so. That's where we're looking at the moment. I mean, as for the long-term future of napalm, who can say? You know, I mean, everything's cool at the moment, you know, but you know, we've been close to the edge, man. Sometimes, yeah. To be really honest with you, in terms of the MTV situation, it's never really been anything that's concerned me, because it depends who you ask in Napalm Death. Each member's got their own opinions about stuff like that. Personally speaking, I was never a fan of MTV. I don't particularly like it. I'd never liked the VJs. They always drove me insane, you know. I don't particularly like corporate television, you know, in its many forms. So I'm not. They did play our videos, but it doesn't. I won't lose any sleep over them not playing our videos on TV, you know. As for the metal shows themselves, to be honest, man, I don't really have a problem per se. I don't really have an opinion on them, where they play Poison next to Slayer or whatever, because watching videos is something that I don't, just for me personally, I don't really do, because they don't really float my boat too much. If I hear them on album, that's enough for me, you know. I don't need to see a video, you know. And I think some videos are pretty laughable, it has to be said, you know. We did one ourselves that I thought was a joke, you know, I mean, like many years ago. So, you know, I'm quite happy with hearing them on CD. I haven't got MTV at home. I don't have cable, and you know, I certainly wouldn't get cable to watch MTV. That's for sure, because you may as well get it and scrub it off my dial, you know, because I'll never watch it. You know, so.